here we go. We're gathered again. And we're going to do draping, and we're going to do the bodice front and the bodice back. I've got my friend Susie here again to help me. So we shall begin. First thing, we have to decide how much fabric we want. So we go from our highest point at the shoulder down to the waist, over the bust, and add about 3 to 5 inches, 3 or 4 inches. So we want at least 2 or 3 on each side. Okay, and then of course we would go from here across to here and add some width. All right, so we've got our fabric here. And I'm going to do the left side. And so I've put my 1 inch seam allowance here on the left side, and I'm going to go ahead and label that center front. And then because our cross grain is going to be at the bust level, this is the biggest bulge here on the front that we're fitting. So we're going to make sure that we do a cross grain right here at the bust. So since this is about halfway from the shoulder to the waist, I just went halfway down on my draping fabric, and I did a cross grain here. All right? And then the next line, okay, so we've got our 2 guidelines. We're going to put in a couple other things. The next thing we're going to put in is a bust point. So I measured, it's easier, I think it's often easier to measure from bust point to bust point and divide it in half than it is to try and go directly half over. So we did that, and we got our bust point right here. Okay? And I did add in an extra 1/8 of an inch just to give us a little bit of ease through here. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put an extra guideline along here so that as we're balancing and trying to get this on straight, we have an extra line to help us line up perpendicular to the floor. So what I did here is I measured from the side seam over to the bust point and divided that in half. Okay, and on that one, I'm going to draw the line straight down. So I'm going to measure from center front, and I'm 7 3/8. So I'm going to go down here, put another mark, and I will go ahead and draw a line so that I can use that for my guideline. Okay, there we go. All right, I think we've got all of our guidelines in place. So now we're ready to put this on the dress form. Okay, so I'm going to first finger press this over my seam allowance so it'll go on nice and smooth. Start here at the lengthwise grain, the crosswise grain, and we're going to put that right in the middle. So you kind of have to just, you can put that right here, and you have to be able to just put that right in the middle with that and looking at that line in the back. Okay. And then I'm going to go straight up to center front here, and I'm going to keep it nice and smooth. Okay, I'm not going to add any extra ease right there. However, when I go down, I'm going to go ahead and put it right at the waist, which is the middle of the tape. But I do need a little bit of ease lengthwise. But as you know, it's kind of hard to drape with extra ease. So what I'm going to do is, when I mark this, I'm going to drape it to the middle of this twill tape, which is the waist. But when I mark it, I'm going to actually mark it at the bottom of the twill tape. And by doing that, that gives me that extra 1/4 inch of ease here in the center front. Okay, that's just a tiny bit of ease, and just by doing that, it will make it easier to drape. All right? So when we mark, we'll remember to do that. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come across here, and I want to, well, I should be able to, if I just go I want to be able to balance this, okay, so I'm gonna undo this for now, okay, and put this, well, I don't know if that's gonna, okay, so let's just go like this. Okay, so when I bring this over, I need to make sure that this is nice and straight, okay? By getting this nice and straight, that is going to help me figure out the size of my darts, okay? So I want you to look at this. When you do this, you need to look straight on from a few feet away and see if that looks straight. Perpendicular to the floor, parallel. It is parallel to center front, so we just want to make sure that we're getting that on straight. Okay? If it doesn't look like it is, we can kind of go up or down a little bit. But does that look straight to you guys? All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pin this down. Okay. And then I'm just going to look at it straight on. And it does look like it's nice and straight. So then that will help me to know how big my dart should be here. Now I have quite a bit of extra fabric. Okay, and I have enough here. I probably could have moved this down a little bit because I have quite a bit extra here and not as much up here. But we should be fine. But let's do a few little slashes here to try and get this to lay down. So over the dress a little bit better. And of course we want to be careful not to go too far up. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is look at my dart, and I want to do it along the princess line. So I'm going to, my fold line needs to be right on the princess line. Okay, and I can feel it through here, right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in that. Okay, and does that look, we want to make sure it's pointing right to the bust point. Does that look good? It's pointing straight up. The other thing we want to do is, because we have done some drafting, we know about how big this dart should be. All right, so let's measure it and see if we think that's about right. So that's 3/4. Actually, it's more like 5/8, and 5/8 and 5/8. So that's 1 1/4 inches. So does that feel about right for a dart? Because remember, we are going to put another dart up here, so that would just be one dart for fitting. All right. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. And it looks like it is, we don't really need to pin it anymore, because as long as it's pointing right to the bust point and we've got the bottom, we're ready to go. All right, so the next thing is I'm going to cut a little bit of this off just so I can, I'm just going to put a few more slashes up here so I can work. Okay, so the next thing I would do, I'm actually going to pin in a little bit of my ease right here. So that I don't forget to leave room for that. And we're just going to pinch out 1/8 like we have been doing. And then I'm going to go ahead and, it does make that kind of awkward right there because of that ease, but we do need ease, so we have to put that in. Okay, so there's, okay, so we're okay with that for now. So I think another reason why it doesn't look too great is, oh, I see, I gotta be careful, because if I do the bottom, there's the bottom right there, so I'm okay, but I don't want to go in much more, so I'm just gonna go like that. Okay, so that should be okay for now. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and do the neck. Okay, in order to do the neck, I do need to have do a few little slashes here. Okay, and I want to make sure that I don't go down. Okay, and I think I'll take some of that off. Okay. When you're on a curve like this, it's kind of hard to slash straight in. Okay, now that, whoa, that is close. So make sure you put your scissors down where it ends, because that went right. Okay, that's a little close, so don't do that close. And I'm gonna just go in here a little bit. There. Okay. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this off so you can see it better. Okay. So let's go ahead and pin the neck. And there's the neck seam right here. Okay, we're gonna go straight up like that. Okay? All right, so I barely missed cutting right here, so I just stopped. Barely enough or I would have been in big trouble. Okay, so there's that. That looks really good. Okay, so what do we have to do now? We left the hardest to last. So now we're going to do the armhole, and the armhole is tricky. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come up here like this. I'm going to move this out of the way. We're going to come up straight here. And this is a little bit, I'm going to take this pin out and just kind of, I think I have enough ease. I'm going to redo this a little bit so it's a little smoother right here. Okay. There. I think we're okay there. Okay. So this is nice and smooth right here. And I'm going to go up to the plate here. See how we have that little plate right here? So I'm going to go straight up, and I'm going to put a pin right at the bottom of that plate. Okay, or just close to that. Okay, so nice and smooth right here. All right? So that's what we have, this plate. Now if you'll notice here, your shoulder seam comes down and goes straight down and makes a nice clean line there. Okay, so that's kind of what we have here. Okay, but one thing we're going to do, another thing is there's a screw. Do you see that screw right there? We're actually going to use that to help us mark a little bit. If we go straight across from that screw, we also have this ridge. So the arm side is really not this as much as the ridge right through here, okay? So that ridge starts like on this side of the screw, goes over to about that side of the screw, and then it kind of smooths down into the bodice. So there's really nothing to guide us down here, all right? So we're going to show you how to fill that in. So right now, though, what I'm going to do is we need a little bit of ease here. So I'm going to go up to the screw, and I'm going to go right across to here, and I'm going to put in an 1/8 of an inch ease right here, okay? Just to make sure I don't get this armhole too tight. All right, and she does that in the book. You can see where she does that.
Is that an 1/8 inch total, or?
It's a pinch, so it's a 1/4 inch total. So we're going to pinch out an 1/8 and put a pin, and it's right across from the screw. Okay. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I need to go up here. Okay, and so that I can finish off the shoulder. But if I do this, like see how I have that nice and neat? If I do this and put this up here, I have got a gob of fabric here. Well, there's no way that I can smooth this out into a dart or anything. So I got a problem here. Since this is going to be an armhole, we don't do this nice neat thing like that. What we do is we bring this out, okay? And we're going to bring out whatever on this fullness points towards the armhole. So see how that's pointing? So we try to get as much off here as we can, because that's really the armhole right here. So we're pulling that off, and then whatever we have left, if any of that looks like it's pointing, now see, now all of this is pointing down to the bust, isn't it? If any of this points this direction, then that means we need to get it off of the armhole. So I think we're okay like that. All right, see how smooth that is? And all my fullness now goes down towards the bust. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put a pin in here along this ridge, okay? And until I get to where I wanna do my seam, all right? And I'm gonna put the seam on the princess line, so I can feel through here that this is my princess line. Okay, now, is it pointing, if I put my seam here, my dart, sorry, is it pointing towards the bust? It is, but it's kind of starting to go off a little bit, isn't it? Can you see where it's kind of veering off a little bit? So we've got to fix that. So I'm going to bring it towards me, and I'm just gonna start to move this along a little bit, okay? And try to reposition this so that it points right at the bust. So I'm just gonna what I'm gonna do is just kind of bring it in like this, and see if I have, see now that's pointing right at the bust, see that? So I'm just gonna bring that up, smooth it. Now, look at, as I smooth this, look at this right here. This is pointing here. So that means I should be able to smooth some of that off, right? As soon as it starts pointing towards the armhole, then it doesn't belong in the bust dart. So I'm gonna bring that over, and it looks good. And I'm going to take my fingers and run it up parallel so that I can try and get legs, dart legs that are the same distance. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and pin that there. All right, so how does that look? If I, yeah, that one. I'm gonna I started out at the princess line, and it's starting to go over a little bit. It could be that I need to I'm gonna slash that just a little bit. Okay. Right, there we go. Okay, so that looks like it's doing pretty good. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, I think we're good. Okay, we've got, now you're gonna have a little, because of this ease, you're gonna have a little bit of extra here. But that's okay. We want that little bit of extra. So how does that look? Does that look like, now, one thing is we wanna make sure we don't, I'm just gonna pull that up a little bit. We wanna make sure we don't add extra, that this stays smooth here. And see, I can now go down and trim that just a little bit. Okay, just to get that to stay. All right, I think we're good. So let's go ahead and mark it, and then we'll take it off and put our lines in. Okay, the places we're gonna mark, we're gonna go up to this shoulder dot, and we're gonna mark our neck, okay? Okay, there we go. I'm not gonna worry about marking the shoulder. The shoulder line is a straight line. As long as I have a dot marking when the shoulder meets the neck, and then I'm going to mark where the dart, I'm going to do a little L there along the dart. Okay. And then I'm going to mark on the ridge right here at this shoulder seam. So I have to make sure I can feel that good. Okay, right here on the ridge, so there's that. Okay? Now I'm gonna follow this ridge down to where I have the 1/8 mark, which is right across from the screw. Okay, then I'm gonna come underneath here and I'm gonna mark at the bottom of the plate where that seam is. Okay, I'm not gonna do a straight line here because, or a line because it's straight. And then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna go to the bottom. Remember, we wanted to go to the bottom of the waist. And I'm gonna mark along the waist. Okay? And that, I can put an L where that dart goes. And then we'll just do some dots right there. All right? So we've got the neck. We'll be able to draw on the shoulder. I've got the upper arm here. And remember, I drew it right on that ridge, stopped, came underneath here, did a dot, went down and did a dot here, and then did my waist. Okay, so we're all finished with that. So let's take it off the dress form and put some lines in there.
For the lower armhole, like, should you mark that with dots as well, or?
No, we're not gonna mark this with dots because the ridge marks the arm side, but this does not.
Okay.
And I'm gonna show you how to do this, but when we do the back, we're gonna do the back first, and then we'll finish this.
Okay.
And then you'll see how this kind of corresponds to what we did with our drafting. All right? Okay. Can you see how this extra line kind of helped us line that up? Get it straight.
Can you mark the side?
On the side seam, all I marked is underneath the plate. I marked right here, and then I marked right here. And I'll show you why I did that, okay? Because we're gonna draw in. Well, we're gonna put that side seam in, but we're gonna make a few changes. Okay, I'm gonna take out that. There we go. Okay, we can take all these out. And let's go ahead and finish marking this, all right? Okay, so let's do our darts first, okay? And one thing that we want to know about the darts is we need to kind of know where the bust circle is, okay? Now, when we did the dress form, did you notice how our darts wanted to go right to the bust point? They really wanted to fit it close. But we know that if we have two darts, we don't really need to go right to the bust point, or it'd be super fitted. So where should we go? Okay, I have a ruler that's buggy. Let me get a better ruler. You usually have a good ruler that's got the 1/8 of an inch marking. Okay, can I use that one, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Is this a BYU one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, we need to do our bust circle. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little arc here at the bottom so that we kind of know where that bust circle is. So how far out am I going on that? You guys remember on that one?
So you're like 2 inches.
2 inches. Okay, so there's that side. Now let me go up here and do a little bit. Okay, All right, so there's the beginning of our bust circle on the top and the bottom. So when I draw my dart, how far past the bust circle should I go? Thinking back to our pattern. How much?
5/8.
Well, closer to 5/8. I'd say 3 to 5/8, okay? Because we have two darts doing the fitting, so we don't have to go all the way in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line up this leg and line it up to the bust point, but I'm only gonna go in about, like, I think I'll go in about 1/2 inch, okay? Or just a little bit less, well, I forget how fat this pin is. Okay, and then I'll do the other leg the same. Okay, all right. Now, one thing that I could have, let me look on here. If I were to go to do a guideline in the middle of the dart, so if I put 3/4 of the line, 3/4 of an inch, which is in the middle of this dart, and line that up to here, really that is more accurate as where our tip should be. So I'm gonna move that over just a teeny bit. Okay, yeah, that's a little more accurate. Okay, all right, so there's our dart, and it's the one that's just a little bit to the right. And I'm going to measure the dart legs and make sure they're the same. Okay, so from here to here, I've got 6 1/4. Okay, from here to here, I have 6 3/16. So that's a 1/16 of an inch off. And that could be the width of my felt pen. So when you measure, after you get these drawn, measure your dart legs, make sure they're the same. What if one is shorter than the other? What would I do? What do you think might be a good way to fix that? Let's say one dart leg is 1/4 of an inch shorter than the other one.
Just line. I mean, I'm not gonna waste.
Well, if we took one 1/8 of an inch longer and made the other one 1/8 of an inch shorter, then we would balance, we'd be able to get the same length. And that's what you did on some of your flat pattern. Okay, so there's that dart. Now let's go do the other dart, up here on the shoulder. Okay, and this dart is a pretty hefty dart. Okay, so that's like 2.5 inches, so that's pretty big. But I'm gonna go to the guideline, and I'm gonna go right to the bust point from there, and I'm gonna go in a little less than 1/2 inch. Okay, and then that's where I'm gonna draw the legs to. Okay, so there's that dart. Okay, so they both go in about 3/8 to 1/2 inch. So now we know it's not gonna be super fitted, and with 2 fitting darts, we should be just fine. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in some of our lines here. Okay, we can go ahead and do our center front, and I can just follow my dots. And the dots look pretty even. And I've built in some ease. Remember, I built in my 1/4 of an inch of ease. And here's my neck. Okay, and where do we need right angles on this? Do you remember where our right angles are? One of them is on center front. Okay, so for about 1/2 inch, so that will go across the front. So there's my front neckline. The other angle, do you remember the other angle? The right angle is right here at the shoulder, arm side, for about 1/2 inch. Okay, since this is a straight line, actually, I'm gonna connect these first. There we go. And then I can do 1/2 inch. That's not good. Let's do it like this. Okay, and the next one is here. Okay? All right. Now we can go ahead and draw this. I've got my right angle here, so here's a right angle. And I'll put the right angles in so you know where they're at. There's one on the shoulder here and one in center front. Okay, this is not a right angle, but this one is, because it goes across the shoulders. It goes across the shoulder straight, and this goes across center front. Okay, so now I can follow this down here. Okay, I'm gonna stop, because I'm gonna finish this later. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at this. First of all, our armhole, if this was our armhole, that would be a really tight fit. Most of our sleeves, our arm size, we should say, come down about an inch past where our actual armpit is. So I'm gonna go down an inch. Okay, the other thing is, I never put in any bust ease, did I? I did that tiny little 1/8 of an inch, which doesn't really make any difference. So from here, from center front to here, I really didn't put in my bust ease. And if I wanted the minimum, which is 2 inches of ease across around the bust, that means that from here to here I need 1/2 inch, right? So I'm gonna actually draw it in now. It's very difficult to try and drape the front with that ease hanging around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come down an inch. Well, first of all, I'm gonna do kind of an imaginary line, okay? And I'm just gonna go like that. Okay, so if I come down an inch, that's right here. And then I'm gonna go out 1/2 inch and go right there. Okay, so I came down an inch to allow for the arm side. And then I went out 1/2 inch to give me some bust ease. Okay, and now I'm going to just connect these 2 dots. And that gives me my side seam. Okay? All right. So we're good for now. Now we just need to do the bodice back, and then we're gonna finish. We'll talk about some different rules for how to figure out where this goes. All right? So why don't we just take a little 5-minute break? Everyone move around, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.